we continued then afterwards with requests for proposal. So in accordance with the provisions set forth in the contract, the transaction structure of the PPP project can be summarized as follows. The contract structure is design, build, finance, operate, transfer. Contract duration is 20 years. So minimum required investment plan is to design, to build, and finance all the infrastructure improvements. Minimum performance at capacity levels is IATA C level of service. Scope of services to continue with all the services offered by incumbent PPP, excluding air navigation services. So the incumbent company, which was the operator of the airport and the air navigation services, was split into two. One remained as a public company, which is Air Navigation Agency, and the other one was transferred to the private partner. Concession fee, and which we will mention again, the concession fee and how it's paid and the percentage. Basically, it's a regular payments in the form of a percentage of gross revenue. Believe me, gross revenue here is the key point and very helpful when it comes to stages. User rates and charges. So aeronautical fees and charges are to be kept at current level. This is one of the reasons now that there are demands or requests from both sides, from the regulator and from the operator of the airport, to change these aeronautical fees, because we all know that fees, charges, prices have not remained the same for the last 10 years. So there's a need to change this and adopt them according to the current situation. One really important thing was employment and social considerations. We asked to honor existing employment contracts for a predefined period of time. And what was this time? 6 months for high management to remain in the same position, and then either offer them contract extension or just leave them or their contract will be finished. And for the rest of the employers, offered 3-year contracts with the same conditions, and afterwards based on the market rates. And the last one is ownership of assets would remain always, all the time, with the public sector. Only the private sector will be given a vacant enjoyment of the whole area. Procurement. So a competitive tender through an open two-phase bid. The RFQ criteria was ownership, first of all, ownership from airline and from state. So what we asked from the private sector was to be independent or not owned by any of the airlines, and also to be private and not owned from any of the states. Second one was technical. So they had to have built 2 airports in 2 different countries with minimum 2 million passengers per year. And the financial was to have 150 million euros net worth or in the balance sheet. For the what we received was 4 submissions, which were Fraport, ICT, Havalimanı İşletme, which is from Turkey, Riviera Company and LR Group from Albania and Israel, Bouygues Bâtiment International, and with a consortium also from other from Kosovo, especially Eurokoha in the end is from Kosovo, so France and Kosovo, and Limak Airport de Lyon Consortium, which is Turkey and France. 3 out of these submissions were responsive and thus eligible for evaluation, and subsequently eligible for proposal submission. 1 failed. Bid was materially not responsive, so they didn't submit the documents in the way or the manner that was requested. For the procurement, a proposal award process comprises of 2 parts. So legal and technical evaluation and financial evaluation part. So best offer is a sum of NPV of gross revenue percentage. The contract was awarded to Limak Airport de Lyon Consortium, and the winner was announced with average of 39.42% of gross revenue concession fee. You will see details of the concession fee, how it's distributed during the years.
This feels quite a lot.
Yes.
Because if all of our participants, they would have listened to the Pulkova case study, and that case there was 15% of, or there was a fixed annual payment of 2 million euros, but in a huge airport in a multi-million population city, and 15% of gross revenue. And the largest I recall, we had a conference on PPP airports in India, and some of the Indian airports, they spoke of 30+% concession fee, and that was considered to be very much.
Exactly. I know that the private partner here in Kosovo, which has similar project of larger size but similar other specifics, they offered only half of this. So maybe we were lucky because of the timing, and the project was not small, was rather at appropriate, size and scope, and these companies were interested at that time because they were in different phases of their development. But what's good for us is that we've ended up with really good proposals from all the participants. I think the second runner in the bid was approximately with 32% of the concession fee. So again, which is really high concession fee. So if I may just continue with proposal award process. So the legal and technical evaluation session. We opened the legal envelopes were opened, reviewed documents, and it was only a pass-fail to be determined. So no points in this case. Again, technical envelopes were opened, again with pass-fail, and then results were announced. Financial evaluation was now, which the part which determined the winner. So we opened the financial envelopes, calculated best economic offer, so in a public session, and we calculated the sum of all the NPVs of gross revenue percentage. And a recommendation was sent to the project steering committee to decide whether they agree on with the proposals or not. The legal without RFP, the legal criteria, which was again pass and fail, tender security was asked for 2 million euros by bidder. Then period of 270 days for bid submission and effective date until the effective date of financial close. Confirmation of eligibility and qualifications, again, because the time between the RFQ and RFP was considerable, so there's a need for a reconfirmation of this eligibility and qualifications, and acceptance of PPP contract or initial contract. So basically, this is accepting the contract in its form by accepting all the items, except those which are negotiable. The technical criteria, which again was pass-fail, so there was a requirement for business plan with maximum 50 pages, compliance technical scope, organizational chart, capital expenditures, finance plan or proposed finance plan which confirmed expressions from financiers, and a transition plan. So because we asked to continue with providing services in the old terminal. Financial criteria for best economic offer, from effective date to the end of the first full calendar year, a concession fee in a fixed amount of 2 million euros each year, so in total 4 million euros. Then commencing with the second full calendar after the effective date, a percentage of gross revenue for each year. Again, you will see the table of the concession fee, which would make it a little bit more clear. One of the options which was not used actually was the project steering committee had to decide on the option of a fixed lease payment of 2 million euro for each calendar year. And at the end, the percentage of gross revenue, revenues may vary from year to year. However, no percentage of gross revenue shall ever be permitted to decrease and must always at least equal to the percentage of the one applied previous year. You will see again in this table of the concession fee what we meant by this. The price proposal was this, given in a more mathematical or with a formula. So a sum of the gross revenues for each year, starting from the first year up to the second to the last one, the 20th year, and with a discount rate of 6.5%. So Procurement, in the end, what actually happened is this, and with actual dates. So the government decision proceeded with detailed transaction design and implementation, issued the call for expression of interest, then issued the request for qualification, then on 20th of October, evaluation, draft RFP. So you can see, so from August to November was the time between the RFQ and the RFP. The bidder conference, a final RFP, because there were issues that could have been negotiated, and request for modification. Submission of proposal was in February, so within less than 6 months from the RFQ, the proposal was submitted. Evaluation, signed the PPP contract by March, and September, little bit more than 1 year later on, financial closure and PPP implementation. So which was a process which not always happens, and in most of the cases we would have delays, we would have postponement of deadlines or requests for extension of the deadlines, but in this case it didn't happen. So, sorry, to go to the concession fee, we mentioned that the concession fee was split in two different kinds of fees. So first of all, fixed concession fee, which was 2 fixed concession fees. First of all, with signing of 2 million euros, then 2 million euros for the period which shall begin on the effective date and end of December 31st of the calendar year in which the effective date shall occur. So in this case, in 2011, and then 2 million euro for the first calendar year after the effective date, so for 2012, if you can see here, if you can follow me. And then afterwards, floating concession fee starting from the 2013 onwards. So this is paid in quarterly installments on the first business day of January, April, July, and October of each calendar year during the whole term. So these are basically the percentages of the gross revenues of the airports, which shall be a basis of calculation of the concession fee. You can see that in the last year, in the last 4 years, it's 55, which is a rather large sum, but in the beginning, it started with 18. So no consecutive year should be less than the previous year. So every time we have either the same or higher amount of percentage, and it goes progressively until with 55. If you see these percentages and we have an average of them, you will see that it's 39.42. Going forward with project implementation, one of the CPs was to have the special purpose vehicle and legal confirmation. Or I don't know now in these other countries how do you call this, but we were in between special purpose entity and special purpose vehicle, but in the end I think most of it, and in line with CP3P manual, it's SPV as an abbreviation, which is used most commonly. Conditions precedent to be fulfilled were, among others, tender security, construction, operating, environmental baseline. You will see also there is a graph explaining this. Financing plan, operations and manual plan, and operation and maintenance manual, master plan, construction agreement, detailed engineering design submission plan, or hire of independent engineer. I will stop with independent engineer and give an explanation. Very important point. I think one of the reasons for successful implementation of this project, we've hired independent engineer, a company from, I think from Spain, which was chosen jointly from the private sector and the public sector. So I think I was also part of the selection committee there, and was paid equally by both sides. So I think their contract was around 1.5 million euros, if I'm not mistaken, and half of it was paid by the government, half of it was paid by the private sector, but their decisions were final whenever there was some misunderstanding between the parties, or disagreements actually between the parties, then independent engineer would act in and give the final decision on this one, this is really crucial in this case. And we we ensured that independent engineer would be an internationally renowned company, which would not have any interest with the company, with the private company or the government in this case, and deliver or submit only decisions which are based on the facts and based on the signed contract. Then the other thing that is really important, and which I think both private sector in this case and also the private partner were happy and lucky, was financing agreement. They secured, and this is 2010, they've managed to obtain a loan of 85 million euros, around $100 million maybe, from Vakıf Bank in Turkey, with stepping right for the lender. So basically, we didn't offer this sovereign guarantee, but the bank was satisfied with direct agreement with the government and the private partners sponsor to grant the bank stepping rights if anything happens or if the private partner is in default. Okay. Then the works and operation and management letters of credits, operating budget, insurance certificates, employment offers to the PIA employees, as discussed earlier, and organizational chart. There were also some other minor conditions precedent to be fulfilled, but maybe they're not so important to go through them now.
Ilir, how many employees were there? Do you remember?
Yep. We thought it was 450. We ended up with 550.
Well, in Pulkovo it was 4,000, and the sponsoring bank the main sponsor had 20,000 employees all over Russia. So for them it was 20% extra staff. So it was a huge issue.
Well, one of the concerns, the social concerns here, was that they would fire most of them. They would bring people from Turkey and France to work here and fire the local employees, but none of it happened. You know, as you can see, you will see in the next slides that basically the number of the employees almost doubled, and they didn't fire anyone. They just hired new people. They will even established an academy for training of the young employees. And, which is really good, I think they've offered to some 50 of them work in contracts in other countries, including Senegal, Kuwait, and other countries where private partner operates. Okay, may I open discussion for this question? Why was the lender stepping right one of the CPs for the PPP agreement to become effective? Or in general, what do you think about the stepping rights of the lender? Do you think it's enough, sufficient for the lender to be able to be comfortable with the contract or with the project? Do you have any opinion, or would you like to discuss about this topic? I think it's really important in this case.
Just a quick remark. It's interesting that it is in the CP to the PPP agreement. It's absolutely typical for CP for a loan agreement, but yeah, I guess there must have been a reason why the government made it a CP to the PPP agreement. Do you have anyone with a view on lender stepping rights and why it's important in this case?
Okay.
I think in order to be project to fail, probably.
I mean, is it Nikon, right?
Yes, it's me.
Yeah. Putting yourself in the shoes of the lender, would you be satisfied, or would it be sufficient to accommodate all the risk and red flags, and in order not to raise red flags with your company or your bank? Would it be enough to have stepping right instead of having a sovereign guarantee from the government? Because basically,
yes.
Sorry?
For lender, yes, probably.
Because basically what stepping rights gives to the lender is that in case the private partner defaults, then the lender has the right to step in and then together with the government in this case try to find another private partner and award it to the other one, which would continue where the previous one stopped. And of course there would be a requirement to amend the contract, especially duration and some of the provisions of the contract. But this was enough. And now when we tell or when we discuss with other lenders, they find it a little bit, unbelievable. How would a bank or a lender be satisfied with only with stepping rights in this case, or at least to make it a little bit more?
You see, there is two ways problem. Sovereign guarantees is always the best one, yes, of course. It's the win-win situation. You don't need lender to worry about anything if there is a sovereign guarantee. But the sovereign guarantees, for example, in our country, have different procedure for adoption and different issues in regards to the adoption. There is can be no possible sovereign guarantees. And if it is a project not at it's a state level project or a regional level project, it's practically impossible to get a sovereign guarantee. There can be local guarantees but their procedure are also very hard in our case.
I think on all the cases, the sovereign
so there is, yes, it's always the better, but the stepping right is to my opinion, is the most the compromise between some kind of compromise to give for the lender some kind of guarantees, but still it doesn't have such hard. It wouldn't be such hard, because if we are fixed on this only for the sovereign guarantees, the project can be to be in the preparation stage forever. So in the end, nobody will win about this. So.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. Okay. Anyone else? Or we will continue because we need to wrap it up rather quickly and have time for discussion other questions. The project implementation or the timeline and guarantee structure is as it looks here. You see, the tender security of selected bidder is, as we said also in the one of the other slides, is 240 days in total. So first 60 days for this contract award, from contract award and incorporation of the SPE or SPV, conceptual design, and then another 180 days for condition precedent. What happened here, these 180 days were, I think, extended for 60 or 90 days, which was allowed by the contract, and if two parties agreed, then they would they could extend it, and it basically happened. And then afterwards, after the contract effective date, we had performance security, and performance security was for construction works for 20 million and operation and maintenance for 250,000 euros, but also other reserve funds, which are I think around 5 million euros for maintenance and for expansion in the future. Very technical and very specific details, but maybe could be part of the discussion in another webinar or other events. So project sponsors and stakeholders, starting from, maybe I will start now with the grantor, which we also mentioned in the beginning. The grantor was the government of Kosovo, represented through the PPP committee and chaired by the Minister of Finance here. Then we have the sponsors, which were now, in this case, Turkish 90% and 10% French consortium. Basically this Limak, İnşaat Sanayi ve Ticaret, if my Turkish is not so bad, and the other one, Limak Energy, basically represent 90%, but this is one single holding. Now in their case, they've split it into two, for the construction part and the energy part, and Airport de Lyon with 10%, if you can see here. The SPV is established in Kosovo with our domestic laws, and is its official name is Limak Kosovo International Airport Joint Stock Company, or SHI in Albanian. And we can see, if you can see here, the lenders were Vakiv Bank. Now, in this case, I have a question here from let me see, from someone asking what is the debt to equity ratio. It was around 80 to 20%, which is, again, I think very good. 85 million euros of loan and 20 million euros of equity. Okay. So, since 2011, the airport is being operated by this private partner, Lima Kosovo International Airport. New terminal was constructed and opened for operations in 2013. The airport has been nominated for several international awards and won many of them. By 2018, as I said also before, the number of passengers doubled since the private partner took over the airport. The number of direct employees increased from 550 to 850. Together with indirect employment, is more than 1,000 employees. Concession fee collected so far, so over the 10 years, is more than 70 million euros, or around, I think, $84 million. But we're facing difficulties now during the COVID-19 period. You will see in the next slides, but the number of passengers fell sharply, as it happened everywhere in the world, where they have difficulties with cash flow and with meeting contract obligations. So one of the actions that the government took in this case is to allow postponement of payment of concession fee for 2020 in 2020 in 2021, and then split it over the next years. The good news that we hear from the airport now is that it's one of the fastest recovering airports in the region, and surpassing now, I don't know how good you know our region, my region of the Balkans. Now it's better than it's standing better in terms of numbers than the airport of Belgrade and Zagreb, which are quite larger airports than the Pristina airport. This is due to the high number of the people living in diaspora and who wish to come now after not being able to come for a year or more in Kosovo. So I believe that the numbers of 2018 and 19 will be reached again very soon, even during 2021. So this is the actual statistics from the airport in terms of what happens with the number of passengers and the flight departures. So you can see, as I was saying before, the number of passengers was around 1 million for the most of the years before it was granted to the PPP partner. So less than 1 million, and then once we started with discussing possibility of PPPs, it already had an increase for 14.2%, and also of the flights. 2009 was again a transitionary year, and then starting from 2010 and 11, you see the numbers. However, we had in 2014 one setback, because one of the companies which was operating, airline companies which operated in Kosovo, with rather huge number of flights and passengers and percentage of business with the airport, did default or bankrupted, and then there was a huge decline of the number of the passengers, which was again compensated in the following year. And most of the years had either double-digit growth or close to it. So if you can see, these numbers are even sometimes 14.7%. 2019 was a year when they reached almost 2.4 million passengers, but 2020 had a decline of 53.4%. Now I understand this number is not as high as it happened in other countries in the world. There were some cases with 70%, 80% decline of the number of the passengers. So now in 2020, the airport was back into a situation of 2008. But 2021 is really promising, and I think they will reach again the numbers of 2000, if not 2018, at least 2017. One of the challenges that we faced here was the challenge of monitoring. Even with terminology, sometimes there's a confusion. If you see the PMU, sometimes it's project monitoring unit, sometimes it's project management unit, and sometimes it's PIU, project implementation unit. Sometimes there's a confusion whether it should be an independent unit outside of both parties or within the contracting authority. We've had this project with these problems during the whole, at least first 5 years, when there was no dedicated project management team. PPP unit did its work, but sometimes it was seen as a conflict of interest because the PPP department or unit was part also of the implementation unit and also of the influencing the decision making in during the whole process. This then was even more complicated when we had an general auditor of Kosovo asking to split this and to have different units or people which were part of the units during the implementation should not be also part of the units during the monitoring, which we had really difficulty to implement. Kosovo is a small country, with only less than 2 million people or inhabitants, citizens. We've filed many times, or we've published many times requests or invitations to offer their services to these units, which failed many times because there was no enough internal capacity, country capacity to provide this kind of services. If we choose or opted to have an independent or outside international company that will deal with the monitoring of the contract, it would be too costly and it would not be really, cost effective, in this case. So. In 2015, late 2015, a PMU was established outside of the PPP department, but it had challenges. Now, challenges, as Nico and other friends of mine here would understand, because people who already were working for different ministries were assigned to this unit as additional work without being paid. It doesn't work. And then later on, we've established a unit within the department, which was split. And we've established this, we've used this IFC and World Bank terminology. We've established Chinese walls between different divisions, not to interfere with each other, when one unit or one division of the department would deal with only with monitoring, and the other one would deal with evaluation of the project or demand or requests from the project. Really difficult, very hard to implement it and put it in practice in real life. So this is maybe now very important to discuss this challenge. Is this something that you also share, or what would you think? What are the main challenges related to the project monitoring? Do you have such problems at any stage, even at the inception stage, or implementation, or monitoring stage? At any stage, this is really difficult and rather had aching issue. So, is there anyone who would like to share their opinion about this?
I can probably.
Yeah.
We have project monitoring is really big issue for us as today. If we are talking now as a project monitoring, not only monitoring part, but also in transition period, which is also can be called as a project monitoring, because it's after the project signature, what is usually the case that is when the contract is signed, somebody should work with the project, but usually it's the public authority who doesn't have a lot of institutional potential and experience in managing such big projects. And on the other side, he usually have a team of consultants from the private partner, which is paid equal, which is paid much more like better. And this is the issue, because we think about it now. We have the case with the 1 second. Now we have the case with the ports projects, which was already signed last year in Olve and Kherson, and now they're in transition period. And of course, so there was a big amount of issues that was arising during this transition period, and also in the future we are thinking that even more issues will arise during the monitoring stages, because there are, as I think there is a statistics, around 90% of all PPP contracts are negotiating.
Exactly.
So there should be a proper team of consultants approved from the public side in order to be to protect the interest of the public authorities during the whole term of the contract. Because of it, I think together with the EBRD and IFC, we're working now on the establishment of the proper PPP experience expertise in the line ministries and cities. In the same time, Ukraine have already established PPP agency, who will also help public authority during the project monitoring stages, where we try to gather all the experience in one place at least and help other public authorities in this case. So yes, I think it's very important, and usually the public authorities forget that when you find the private partner, it's okay, but you need still to work with it during the whole period of time.
Exactly. And as you rightfully said, there is asymmetry of information and capacity between the private sector and the public sector, especially in our region of the world, when there's a lack of capacity, institutional capacity within public institutions, and then on the other side you have best paid lawyers and technicians.
Sorry, I need to go. I was called for a meeting. Thank you very much for interesting presentation, and Sergey for organizing it. I hope it wouldn't be the last one. We'll see much more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nico. Many thanks for your active participation.
No problem, always.
Thank you. So if we try and approaching the last slide, so the process flow was this starting from 2008 with project initiation and feasibility study, procurement process 2009, 2010, then construction phase 2011 to 2013, when we started with full implementation, and the first half of the contract we ended with, or the project ended with 70 million euro concession fee, direct concession fee. The need to renegotiate several regulatory related issues, especially those which are related to the fees which were established in 2009 and 10 and need to change, and other COVID-19 related problems in the last year and this year, so 2020 and 21. So I'm a little bit biased when it comes to PPPs. I'm always in favor of PPPs, so that's why I deliberately chose, the worst photos of what was before. You can see the old terminal and how it looked inside, and after. So this is how it looks, actually, the photos from this year and last year in the international airport of Pristina, a modern airport, rather small when it comes to compared to other international airports. This would be an airport which can accommodate up to 4 million passengers, which is compared to other international airports really a small airport. So There were many lessons which we've learned from this project, and many recommendations which derive from these lessons. I would like to share some of them with you. But before we start with that, do you have anything, or other participants, do you have, what do you think, what would be the best, what lessons have you learned from these projects, and are there any recommendations you would suggest your country's PPP framework and airport PPPs based on this case study? I mean, feel free to give your comments and give your opinion about this. Now that Nico is gone, I think there could be somebody else who is as active as Nico was.
Yes, guys, don't be shy. If just, let's say, if you have Artur, please.
Yeah, firstly, I should admit that really extremely important role of forecast in airport development, as you underlined in the beginning of the presentation, because it could be a bottleneck in further development of airport if forecast is quite conservative and you overcome it even in the first half of the project's life cycle. And it's really a big deal in a project assessment period. And I think every PPP unit should carefully work with passenger and for cargo flows forecast for an airport, because the airport capacity is strongly dependent on this forecast, and the capex depend on it, and all other performance aspects also. That is a big lesson for me from this presentation and from this Pristina airport experience. And of course, the second is really a really good thing that lender agreed for step-in rights instead of guarantee from government. And really, I agree with Sergey that very high percentage of concession fee from gross revenue, and that's also great that bank agreed to lend such a project. That's really a win for the Pristina airport from my point of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very, very, very, very good observations. Thank you. Somebody else? Okay. Good. Let me share my lessons, or what I consider the best lessons learned from this case. First of all, proposed projects have to be fit for PPP model and within strategic objectives of the implementing institution. So, so this is the understanding that not all projects can be implemented through a PPP model, first of all. Second one is project champion is necessary in order to have successful project. We had here two institutions and two ministers which were on top of this project all the time. Sometimes even we used to work with them until midnight in order to have to be prepared for the next day and to meet with a private partner. So Minister of Finance in this case and Minister of Infrastructure were two key players and project champions which really pushed forward this project. The third one is to have a veto power of Ministry of Finance was crucial, because by the need of the process, there were requests or proposals, for example, to add a hotel to the airport, to add I don't know, training center, to add different elements to the project, to make it larger, to make the runway, to extend the runway, etc., etc. But you know, Minister of Finance was there always to say, okay, this is what we can afford, and this is the right size for this moment. Maybe in the future we can also start expanding it and adding elements to the project. But for the moment, that's it. So this is what this was really good from Minister of Finance to have the veto power. The private sector parties should have been consulted at the initial phase. So we went with transaction advisors, we went with really good advisors, we asked them, and then we've developed or structured the project. But if we had a private sector from the very beginning and taking their ideas and their proposals in the initial phase, probably would have had even better project than what we ended up. I think it's a good project again, but still, if we had them on board from the beginning, it would have been even better. All necessary stakeholder consultation must be undertaken from the very beginning, which was really crucial for us in order to fulfill or to implement the project. Key social and environmental impact need to be identified and mitigation measures to be in place. So fortunately, we didn't have any environmental impact, or at least not worrying ones, but we had some social issues which we needed to deal with, especially with employment and with contracts guarantee for a certain period of time. I understand that there are other airports, for example, Zagreb Airport had 5-year contract guarantee for all the employees of the existing airport. In our case, we had 6 months for the high management and 3 years for other employees of the project. Stable and supportive regulatory environment is essential. This is why in the beginning before starting with the actual case, I started with legal framework, with policy and legal framework and institutional framework, which were crucial to having a successful project implementation. As recommendations deriving from these lessons is start planning early, because PPPs do take time. As we all know, we are all practitioners of PPP. Then ensure sufficient administrative capacity, internal and external if needed, because we saw that there's always asymmetry of information and capacity, which is in favor of the private sector. Then hire advisors, construction advisors, independent engineer, all the best that you can afford, do hire them, because there's always a need for external advice and external help or support, and in order to implement projects, because ministries are not, even the Ministry of Infrastructure is not capable of delivering or having all the technical and legal and financial capacity and expertise within the institution in order to be able to come up with the best possible project. Ensure competitive bidding process. Tendering is very important in this case, because it tells you, it allows you to obtain the best value or the best proposal from the private sector in general. As you said, we've got really a good bargain with this project, or good concession fees. Sometimes people are even skeptical if it's true or not. And by the way, I have to tell you, if those who are interested, the PPP contract is published and is public and can be obtained, can be downloaded from the website, and it's in English. Make the contract flexible. Anticipate the contract review, changes, variations, renegotiation, and dispute resolution. You cannot imagine how happy was I when I found out that, because I didn't notice it before, that in the force majeure disclosure in the PPP agreement, there was pandemic mentioned. And when it happened, when COVID-19 happened, we were really happy that at least, in this situation, we at least have some basis how to proceed forward. Imagine if we didn't have it, and how would we tackle this COVID-19 pandemic and the procedure. So it was within the force majeure articles within the PPP, and it helped us to see how to overcome this problem.
Turns out most of the PPPs, I believe, did not have pandemic as one of the force majeures, because there were so many discussions on whether it should be, how to treat it now, what can be done retrospectively. That's a huge point. Yeah.
And then treat the project as a real partnership. We had, I believe, at least as long as I was head of the PP department, at least 2 or 3 red flags raised within a year, which could, if not treated properly and not in a spirit of a real partnership, would ended up with arbitration or default of the termination of the contract. You know, that's why it's really important to treat the private partner as a partner in this project, and not only as the other party which wants only to benefit from the project. So if there's a spirit of partnership within these main key stakeholders, there's always a way possibility to find a way to find solutions to all the problems that may arise, and problems will arise within during the course of the contract duration. So be prepared to deal with them. So this is the last slide of the presentation. Now I know that many questions that have been already asked, I try to answer them immediately when I saw the questions. But if you have, and I do encourage you to, if you have other questions, to ask me now and to start with a discussion. Artur or
yes. First of all, I'd like to ask about risk metrics and risks that occurred during the project implementation, and for example, some time overrun in building phase, or other risks that really influenced seriously the cash flow of the project.
Exactly. Yeah, the risk, as I said, there was the main risks that were allocated to the private partner were, as I said in the beginning, the design, the financing, the construction of building, and operation. So the usual one. Fortunately, we didn't have any delays in this case. One of the problems that we had was, I think it comes down to translation problems in the contract. One of the conditions precedent was to obtain all the permits and licenses, and it was allocated to, of course, to the private partner. But there was a provision saying that the grantor will provide support in obtaining these licenses. This, from the private sector, was translated as the grantor will provide these licenses, and we, as the grantor, the grantor representative, we said, we understood it as, of course, the private partner will go and submit requests for these licenses and submit all the necessary documentations. We, as the representatives of the grantor, will facilitate the process and not allow any delays or any problems in this process. So we came to this, who should do it and whose responsibility it is, until we found a solution. Now, the one major problem that was risen during the 2015 and 16 was that the vacant enjoyment. So grantor provided the vacant enjoyment to the private partner as one of the conditions precedent. Okay, this is the plot that is now at your disposal to work. But then we have a KFOR or NATO troops near or next to the airport. They've entered one part of this parking lot. They said, okay, we have an agreement with previous administration, which was UN administered unit, which allowed us to use this plot for our purposes. And basically this was, when it comes to strict, if you look strictly at the contract, it's a breach of the contract by which the grantor did not provide vacant enjoyment or the free use of the area to the private partner. If you look at it strictly, the private partner could have requested, termination of the contract, and also compensation, but we've managed to overcome this, renegotiate, and actually to have amend the contract in order to leave that part of the area which was really insignificant to the NATO troops there and redefine this the plot. This is what's major. I mean, now the way I said it, it sounds not a big issue, but believe me, it was really important at that time. And this is one or two of the main risks that we faced during, except the COVID-19, of course, that we faced during the duration of the contract. Others, I don't find them. I don't see any other risks which occurred during the duration of the contract so far.
Thank you very much for the answer. And the second, my question was closely connected for the renegotiations on the influence of COVID-19. And that's great that you have a force majeure point like a pandemic. It's really, your airport is lucky instead of others who didn't have any point on it. And what is the strategy to deal with it? Of course, because if bank has stepped in right, and if it has now problems with its loan repayment, and what are the strategy to renegotiate in such situation with the bank having stepped in rights in the project?
One good thing within the force majeure was that when it occurred, the contract is not delayed, but the contract will be extended for the same period to which the force majeure occurred. So if we had a force majeure for 6 months, then the contract will be extended for 6 months. So now this is clear for us. So it will happen now. The contract duration is not 2031, but 2032. What we've done so far in order to mitigate this COVID-19 impact is that we've postponed or delayed payment of the concession fee. And then, as a sign of good faith from the government, when the lenders saw this, then they also renegotiated the payment of the loan from the private partner, which was also needed to be accepted by the grantor, and it was done I think in last year, December 2020. So basically, lender and the grantor both delayed payments of concession fee and interest and the loan to the bank. So I think if we don't have any fourth and fifth phases of this COVID, I think they will be able to come back or to compensate the loss that occurred during 2020 within, I think, 2, maximum 3 years, and no major problems are overseen. Now it depends on how this COVID-19 situation continues. If this is the end of it, I think 2021 will compensate most of the losses of 2020, and no need for major renegotiation. But I said, renegotiation of regulatory related issues, prices need to happen whether we want it or not.
Thank you very much. I also believe that vaccines should be effective, and really will win in this war with COVID-19, and hope for the rebalancing the forecast and having a strong trend on growth of passenger transportation. And I wish your project to be successful, and other projects using your experience to be successful too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dear friends, maybe one more question, because we have to launch another event in about 7 minutes. So maybe we have 2-3 more minutes to wrap up. Is there any other question or comment from the participants?
Okay.
If I may, I have maybe over 1 or 2 minutes. Can I ask you if you were to get back to the original point of this project identification, PPP structuring, is there one or two key things you would do differently?
Well, what I would have done differently is to see, first of all, one thing that needed to be added in the beginning is the extension of runway, because we were facing problems with runway for these larger aircrafts, and that would be that should have been part of the project in the very beginning. Although the rationale behind it, excluding it, was that it would be the project would become too large for the size of the country. Because I said in the previous slides that there were requests to have a training center, to have a hotel, to have a different, even trade center or the mall next to it to be part of the whole project, and it would just make the project too large for the country of this size. And the other one is that I would have asked, or I would now speaking as external advisor, not as part of the government, but I would ask from the government more stricter rules and stricter requirements to have its monitoring and internal capacity to be part of the I mean, building it would be should have been part of the project in the beginning, because most of the problems that were reason were because of the lack of this capacity, and it was human errors and lack of proper monitoring from the very beginning.
That's very valid. On the runway, first of all, I think in Russian Federation, runways are usually not part of any PPPs, and they are ownership of the federation, and it's the public money that usually invests in construction of new runways. Keeping it up is probably something that the private partner can be, but indeed it would make a project so much more expensive. And you also mentioned that the new terminal quite quickly was out of capacity, so maybe like phased development of triggered development of new phases could be a feature of this project. I'm sorry, we almost took 2 hours for this exciting presentation and an exciting project to learn about. I really am sorry that we need to wrap up to make this channel available for something else. But Ilir, thank you ever so much. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed and you learned a lot. Thank you for those, for Nico, Artur, and those who participated actively, gave some feedback to Ilir. We will make the video recording available for everyone. We'll probably not post it openly, but everyone will have a link to watch it on YouTube. And the PDF version of the presentation will also be made available. And stay tuned. There will be more events like this. If you have questions, please. I don't think we. Dear, can you move to the very last slide? There is our generic info at PPT Expertise, but we all get this rerouted to our emails. So whatever you want to ask Ilir about, please send it to this email. He will read it. Yes. Okay then. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was really exciting, and I hope maybe in future we can contact via email and discuss some aspects of potential projects to use experience of Pristina Airport in future projects. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sergey and Rimir, for such a nice person and such a nice experience and really exciting presentations, and look forward future events to participate also in them. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Feel free to, of course, feel free to approach Ilir directly for any advisory, any brainstorming or anything. Ilir, yeah, that's what I had to say. Now, maybe you wish to say goodbye, and we'll wrap up.
specifically. Thank you very much to all the participants. Thank you also to Sergey for organizing this event. It was really interesting, exciting for me. I hope I was able to disseminate any information that was could be used by you in the future. But also, as Sergey said, please feel free to contact us at any time, to contact me directly if you want to share any of the information. Please be active and be open to discussions in the future. I'm here always all the time available. So please feel free to contact me at any time.
Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good weekend and see you soon, I hope.